I'm JR.
And I'm CJ, and we've been coming to Forefront for 7 years now.
Growing up, to be honest, I didn't have a real relationship with God. And during my teenage years, we had a lot of dark times. My relationship with family was non-existent. And I was kicked out of my house when I was 17, was sleeping on friends' couches. I was big into the music scene and did a lot of bad things that went along with that. Finally saved up enough money to get my own apartment, which I was then evicted from, and so I was homeless for a short period of time. Then it got even worse and found out my mom was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And I was just really depressed and just continued to do things to numb the pain and numb the feeling. I remember it was 2 o'clock in the morning. I was driving on the highway under the influence. I was doing about 90 miles an hour, crashed into a guardrail. I was on a trajectory of destruction, and that's when I hit rock bottom. I wanted to figure out this whole God thing, is he real? And it wasn't until a coworker sat with me, prayed with me, spent time with me, took me to his own Bible study, and I was just full of fire and so much passion, and I decided I'm gonna accept Jesus as my Lord and Savior and be reborn again, and it was just an amazing feeling. Went to my mom, and she was in hospice care at home. I was able to speak to her, and she turned to me and looked at me and said, "It's okay as long as you love God." And she passed shortly after.
I have 3 younger brothers, and we found out that my youngest brother, his name is Daniel, was diagnosed with a very rare condition called dyskeratosis congenita. That time he was, I think, only 3. He received a bone marrow transplant. He was able to do everyday things, except there were things he couldn't do. He couldn't be outside. He couldn't play sports. He did have a compromised immune system. A couple years later, my mom called crying hysterically, and she said, "Your brother's lungs are failing and he needs a double lung transplant." And a month later, my parents, along with my brother, went to St. Louis to be put on the list. I stayed behind with my other 2 brothers. I ended up, I think I was 23 at the time. I became the guardian for one of my brothers because he was still a minor. The transplant was successful. He was only 14 at the time. We got married. We had our first son in 2014, and then shortly after that, we actually found out we were pregnant again with our second son. And right after that, we found out that Daniel was going to face another battle. He now had cancer on his tongue. I remember I went into labor, and that same night, he was in the emergency room, just a couple floors below us. He passed away on March 31st. And when people ask me or ask us, like, how did we get through that with having a 1-year-old and then just giving birth like 2 weeks beforehand, I tell them, I'm like, it's, God can only do something like that. We saw the love of Jesus through other people.
What I really love about Forefront is that it's a place where you could belong before you believe.
I love Forefront because I know I'm not perfect, and it's a safe place. It's like that last puzzle in our life when it was all, jumbled. And once we put that last puzzle piece together, it was like you just saw the picture of Jesus and his love and what he can do for your family.
Having a foundation with God at the center of everything, that's what I want for my children. Well, then we have to lead by example and do the same.